Hello, 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 and welcome to today's episode of Her Talk Show. This podcast is dedicated to a growth mindset. You see, I believe that you know something that I don't know, and I also believe that I know something that you don't know. And the only way that each of us can rise in our knowings is for us to sit in a room. Here's the room and share our knowings. For those of you that are new to the show and love inspirational content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. My name is Sabrina Victoria. Let's jump right in.
We come to you every day with the best speakers, relationship coaches, spiritual mentors, trailblazers, business owners, authors, young hustlers, podcasters, entrepreneurs, fitness trainers, therapists, financial advisors, and more. We ask our guests one question. What do you know that I don't know? Get ready, because today's guest is about to change the way you view your world. This is Her Talk Show, hosted by Sabrina Victoria.
Thank you for those of you that are already jumping on live. We so appreciate it. We have had over 500 women grace this stage, and we are adding another one to the list today. If you're watching us live, welcome. If you're watching us on the replay, make sure you hashtag replay wherever you're at so we can send you some love. Either way, if you are watching this video, if you could please share it wherever you are so we can get more eyes and more ears on the awesome content that we're about to share today. This is Her Talk Show. We're here to inspire and have you thinking outside the box in no time. Today, I'm speaking with an amazing woman named Jessica. Jessica is a certified parenting coach and a founder of the Find My ZenFam Parenting Movement. Love it. After working with a parenting coach for her own family, Jessica realized the information parents need to foster connection and cooperation in their home is not easily accessible. Yes. Her mission is to spread this information as far and wide as quickly as possible. Welcome, Jen. How are you?
Thank you, Sabrina. I'm good. I'm so honored to be here. I love you since the moment I met you. I love this platform and I love your guests. I've learned so much that I didn't know. So thank you for having me.
Oh, I love that. What a way to start us off. Yes, girl. Mm-hmm. Isn't that true though? Like, have you ever been in a conversation with somebody and you're just like, oh my gosh, I didn't fucking know that. Until you actually know the thing. And then I always say you can't unknow what you know, which is cool.
It's like one of my favorite topics. I call it consciousness. It's like, I mean, like there's some things we just didn't know because we didn't have access to them, and some things that are just kind of buried within. And either way, they're just like kind of these epiphany, broadening moments that I just live for. I just feel like really, I don't know, inspired when I learn them.
Yes, 100. Well, I'm super excited for this subject. I myself don't have young ones anymore. I have a 19-year-old son, but I did go through all of the stages. So I'm super excited to dive into the thing that you know that you wish we all knew, for us to get a better understanding of this thing we call parenting. Because as we know, there's no book, right?
Oh my gosh.
Or is there?
Well, that's the thing. That might be the thing that I want you to know now. It definitely comes with some backstory. What I want to share today about the textbook, it took me almost a decade to figure out. And it was not an easy almost decade. It was a lot of fun too. Definitely a lot of fun. But sometimes the painful things can kind of overshadow that a bit. My family went through a lot of turbulence, I'll just say, trying to figure things out, how to make our home peaceful. My girls I have 3 girls. Now they're ages 11, 9, and 7. But early on, I had this vision of how close we would be and how connected we would be. And I think a lot of parents envision this type of relationship with their child. Yeah. And whether they are close with their parents or not, I think when you come to be a new parent, you always be like, well, I'm going to do this differently, or I'm going to do this the same, or I've got this down. And so you have this vision, but then when you actually become a parent, it's quite different. I know for me personally, and a lot of the families that I work with, the days are full of yelling all day long, power struggles, sibling fights, wars over screen time. Is it enough? Is it not enough? And nobody listening. Parents just repeating themselves again and again and wondering, what is going on? How is this our day to day? What is happening here? Yeah. So when my first daughter was 2, I ordered my first parenting book called Scream-Free Parenting. That did not work. There was yelling in our home every day. My kids were yelling back at me. I was yelling at them for yelling at me. I'm going, this does not make any sense.
Yeah.
And I'll bring up this one example specifically because I know it's in most homes. Not so long ago for me and my family, in the 30 minutes it would take for us to wake up, get ready for school, and get to school, 30 minutes, I would feel like I'd been to war.
Oh, yeah.
Like, back on my bike, back on my car, like, what just happened? It's the same thing we do every single morning. Like, why is it so hard to get up and get out of the house? Why are we fighting? Why are we yelling? Why don't we know to put our shoes on? Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
It was absolutely exhausting. I would often describe parenting as feeling like a punching bag, just disrespect it, nobody listening, nobody caring, and just mentally and physically, emotionally, every day exhausted. And, you know, as things went on and I had more babies, I would order a new parenting book, being like, oh, there's got to be answers. There's got to be a way, just something I'm missing. So I did all the traditional things that most parents do, timeouts, privileges revoked. But by the time my girls were ages 3, 5, and 7, I couldn't keep any straight anymore. My daughter would come out of timeout. My daughter would say, but I thought she had 1 more minute. And my other daughter would say, and I thought she got TV taken for the day. And I was like, I don't even know anymore. This is all day long.
Oh, because you would just be spouting things off and then not remember.
Yes. And just the days running together. I'm like,
Yeah.
This is just crazy. Like, something has to give here.
Yeah.
And I would ask family members, friends, like, it wasn't like we weren't trying. Me and my husband cared so much. Of course, we loved our children so much, just like every other parent, but we're like, what is happening? And whenever we consulted friends and family, everybody was just like, yeah, parenting's crazy, hang in there. And I really thought maybe I should just need to start accepting it and stop resisting it and somehow figure out a way to make it work, like kind of just give up. But I knew what we were going through wasn't sustainable, and it didn't feel good.
Yeah.
And then I actually didn't have the opportunity to just give up. My one daughter appeared to be heading towards depression at the age of 6. And she appeared to kind of be shutting down, even losing a little bit of withdrawal from playing with toys, a 6-year-old.
Wow.
So I took her to a therapist, and they wanted me to play music for her when she tantrumed. And right away I was like, I don't have time to see through finding the right therapist. Like, this is not I love music and it's powerful, but I knew that wasn't the answer. Like, something bigger was going on here that I was missing. So I get online again and I do another search, and I discover something called parent coaching exists. I had never heard of it. And right away I was just thrilled, thinking, oh my gosh, there's other people like me going through the same thing, and other people who know how to get us out of it. And when I went on to read the curriculum, it listed all these things I had never heard of. But at this point, I had been studying parenting for almost 6 years. It listed things like attachment science, emotional intelligence, brain science, nervous system science, conscious communication. My mind was blown. First of all, I'm not a science person, but I have never been more excited about science because I knew, since I had never heard of these things and they seemed to be scientifically research proven and driven and current, I just knew with all my being that this had to be the answer. And I signed up right away. And that is what I want to share with you, is what I learned from my parenting coach. And at the end of it's a 12-week program. It's called the Transformational Parenting Coaching Program. And they want to know at the end, what is your biggest takeaway? And I want to share with you what mine was. Mine was, oh my God, children are widely and dangerously misunderstood. And it was bigger than that. I realized as I'm saying it out loud, but wait, there was all this stuff I didn't know about myself now, currently, as an adult, as a mom. And there was all this stuff I didn't understand about myself when I was a kid, and all this stuff that people didn't understand about me when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And so this was the big epiphany, was putting these two ideas together. The problems that we are having in parenting is because we have humans that don't understand humans responsible for raising other humans, but we don't actually know how they work.
Yeah. 100. I agree with that.
My mind was blown. And while I was going through the program and I knew each step of the way, as each week we uncovered a new educational topic, that I needed to share this information with as many people as possible. At the end of it, I just thought, I just knew that this was my calling to save parents from the same struggles my family and I had been through, to save children from really being pulled away from themselves, their authenticity, so then they don't have to find themselves later. And I've since made ZenFam from a company into a movement because I truly believe that this is going to serve much bigger, solve much bigger problems that we are facing: anxiety, low self-esteem, lacking confidence, depression, substance abuse, and even suicide in our young ones. I believe that this can combat all of that when children have a strong foundation that the transformational parent coaching program provides.
Yeah. So I don't know about our listeners, but the very first question that I have is, how are those 30-minute mornings now?
Oh my gosh, so much better.
How then?
And our nighttime routines. So it comes, let's see how to break it down. So within that 12-week program, you learn a lot of different things. But just to roll out emotional intelligence alone in the home, it's a multi-step process that takes practice and learning and experience again and again. So for example, if my child is dragging her feet getting ready for school in the morning, and instead of going in and saying, come on, I don't know what the problem is, you know what to do, why do I have to tell you every day? But instead I go up to my child and I go, hey baby, I see you're really into that stuffed animal right now. That stuffed animal's fun, huh? Well, what are you going to do? You're going to take that in your backpack and play with it at recess today, or are you going to put it somewhere safe for after school so you can come right back to it? Because right now we have to focus on getting dressed. And then I meet them where they're at. I'm tuning into what's going on in their fantasy mind at that moment. I'm helping them get their needs met instead of and I'm connecting with them instead of commanding and demanding. And it's when we connect that we get cooperation.
Beautiful.
So often we command for cooperation, but we actually have to connect first.
Did you see a difference in the age groups? Do you have 3 of them? As far as some of them connecting to what you were doing, some of them being too smart for it, backlash, how'd that work out?
Well, my girls are really close in age. They are only 22 months apart between the first 2, and then 17 months between the bottom 2. And so that was the other thing. I was like, how are 3 elementary school kids kicking my butt? But they all have their unique personalities, as every child does in every family, which is a whole separate fascinating conversation, how the same kids raised by the same caregivers can be completely different. But I would say they've all responded to it when we cater it to their personalities. But emotional intelligence, and actually, let me talk about brain science a little bit, because I mentioned that, and this has a lot to do with that morning routine, is our children, if I go up to them and say, I need you to put your shoes on, I need you to get your book bag, and I need you to come eat breakfast. This is a function of the prefrontal cortex in the brain, and that's multiple sequence directions and the ability to follow it. And this part of the brain doesn't begin forming until the age of 7, and it isn't finished until the age of 25. So when our children are listening all that instruction that seems simple to us and seems like they should be able to follow, it's just actually not within their brain capabilities to get it right every time.
Okay.
Yeah. And a lot of times we imply that they're being bad, they're being disrespectful, they're not listening to us. And when we tell them those things, they actually start to believe it, because just like most of us adults and parents, we don't know about the prefrontal cortex. And so our children don't either. So if us as the caregiver, who they love more than anything, is telling them it's because you don't care about me, it's because you don't listen to my words, they take on these beliefs about them as a person and as a human being.
Yeah, let's touch a little bit on that. I know the inner voice has a lot to do with that as far as parenting goes. Can you share some of that with us?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Um, and let me tie it to emotional intelligence and brain science. So, for example, with emotional intelligence, when our kids have big emotions, we as a society would often respond to that, as I did early on in my parenting, with, oh, you want to be angry? Go to your room, come out when you're done. Or if you're a parent of a boy, boys don't cry. What are you doing? So our society has a long history of shaming emotions, guilting emotions, avoiding emotions. And what our children take on as beliefs about themselves is that they are bad for having this emotion.
Mm.
And and this is what I mean by we don't actually understand how humans work. Our emotions are super important. It's our way that our body tells us that we have a need or a want that is not being met.
Mhm.
And so if I'm angry because my sister keeps taking my toy and my mom says, you want to be angry about that, you can go to your room. Well, I learned early on that this emotion that's overtaking my body automatically, I didn't even have any control over it. I'm bad for having it. So now I learn as a human being that I don't actually make sense because my mom's telling me I shouldn't have this, but I am. And also, my needs and wants aren't important because nobody's really helping me figure out how to communicate this effectively to my sister that I'm tired of you taking my toy 10 days in a row. And I don't have a big person to support me through that.
Yeah.
So there's some beliefs that come through that. And then again, through the brain science. So prefrontal cortex, we already talked about multiple sequence directions. But this is also where we are able to focus. So if you're doing homework with your child and they're spinning on their chair and you're going, focus, why can't you just focus? We got to get through this. Instead of being like, I can see you need a break. How about we come back to this in 1 minute because you keep looking around? Or are you able to focus now and we can continue?
Yeah.
And so they both imply very different things, right? Like, I understand you as a human, as a child, and I understand your physiology, the way your emotions are, the way that your brain works. And I understand, circling back to your question of inner voice, how being conscious, more conscious of my communication and the power of my words and what I'm saying to you, how much they affect who you become and what you believe about yourself. So if I'm shaming your emotions, guilting your emotions, not helping you get your needs met, if I am yelling at you when you are actually just performing within your brain's capabilities, my child did say things like, I'm dumb, I am bad. So when our children are saying these things, it is important to take them seriously and to seek support in that and to believe them and help them and dive into what is it they're hearing all day long from me? What is it they're hearing year after year or even decade after decade? And I remember distinctly when I was going through this part of the program, a whole week on conscious communication, when my daughter came into the house, I had already told her a couple things I needed her to do as we got in. So this is all within an hour time frame. And then her sister comes in the room and like says something to her about what she needs her to do. A half an hour later, my husband comes home and he lets her know a couple things he needs her to do. And this is all just typical day-to-day, like getting stuff done. But I'm in a space of like observing at this time and like more conscious and in the present moment. And then we sit down to dinner and I can just feel her energy and tension building. And I'm like, if this child gets one more correction, she's going to blow. And so it's not just even the quality of our words, which is so important, and having intention behind our words if we're going to correct something, but it's also like the quantity, like within the 24-hour day or even less than that because we're awake, the 12 hours and then the couple hours less than that because we're all at school and work that I see my kid. What are they hearing from me? What's the quantity? What's the quality? And it's so important because this is what protects their self-esteem, what builds their self-worth, their confidence, their ability to trust their intuition and get really close with themselves and start to look at, and so that they can be empowered. So later in life, when they have these big emotions that hit them from a breakup, a bad grade, whatever it might be, a friend fight, they can go, wait, I've experienced anger before. I've experienced sadness, and we have a process for going through it. And that process is everything, and it can carry us through most situations. And it's pausing for presence, right? Not letting, even though our body feels like it's being chased by a tiger, right? Because we just start shaking, our heart starts beating, we remain present instead. And we go, wait a minute, it's just my daughter, not listening to instructions. It's not actually an emergency. And then we let ourselves feel that, let it actually go through our body instead of stopping it. And then we can name that emotion. Oh, there. Okay. That is present. What is underneath this big emotion? And oh, it's that I want or I need this. Well, how can I get that met? So this leads us to empowerment and problem solving. And so that's what I do with my kids when they're angry now. Well, what are you going to do about it? And maybe they have some answers and maybe they need help. And if they need help, I'll say, well, here's some suggestions. What do you think about these? And then they can have something to fall back on the next time that situation arises, or they can go and fix the current problem that they're in, trying some of those.
Beautiful. When you started learning these new things, did you have a family sit down to say like, hey, we're going to start doing things differently? Or did you just start to implement things and then there was an obvious shift?
Oh my gosh, there's so many layers to it, right? So many layers. It was a little bit of like, well, let me test this out first. Do I believe this? Let me get buy-in with my husband because it's going to be good if we can both move forward at the same time. And let me tell you, the first time I practiced emotional intelligence with my daughter, it just blew my mind. And I knew with every part of my being that this was a big part of the answer.
Yeah.
So traditionally, where we would have yelled at her to go to her room when she was hitting or biting or kicking her sisters and told her to not come out until she was done, I instead got on her level and I said, it's okay, baby, I got you. And I picked her up because you still don't want them to hurt anybody. You still remove them from the situation if something physical is going on. Yes, if they won't just come with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I carried her to her room and she's screaming, get off me, get out of my room. And I said, I'll go, but I also want you to know that you don't have to go through this alone. And I can either wait in here with you or I can wait outside your door. And she stopped screaming and crying. And I swear, like her eyes bugged out of her head, like, what did you just do with my mom? And she just kind of put her thumb in her mouth. She's a thumb sucker. It's so cute. And she just kind of nodded and kind of looked at me skeptically, like I could stay there. And so I stayed and I waited and I focused on my breathing so I could remain calm in the situation. And slowly her nervous system started to calm as well. And I said, oh, that was big. She goes, yeah. I go, what was that? Anger? She goes, yeah. I go, sad? She goes, yeah. And I go, well, do you want to tell me what's going on? And again, she's still like confused, but also I saw relief in her eyes, like right away, like, finally, Mom, you're showing up for me. Like, you're here for me. I'm not bad. Like, I could just see it in her face. And I knew right then, like, this was it. And it took a lot of practice after that to do it each time. And, we worked through what she was angry with her sister about. And, well, hitting didn't feel good, did it? And it didn't solve your problem, did it? She goes, no. I said, what else are you going to do? And it takes repetition. It takes practice. It takes a while to get good at it, but it's so, so worth it. It's absolutely transformational when your kids know that they are safe to have their feelings. They're safe to talk to you about anything that's going on, anything that they want to, and that you are just going to listen. And that's all we need to do most of the time. And then offer if they need help problem solving, or if they want us to listen to them problem solve. But then the earlier that they learn that their problems are theirs, we're going to support them through it, they're going to be able to handle anything that comes their way. And the family as a whole is going to be able to work together and just have this process so down pat for like decades that they are going to be fine when they go to college, fine when they go into young adulthood, because that practice has been there for so long.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking to divorcees, speaking to single moms, speaking to partners who are split, and there's two different homes. What is some advice that you would have for them who are drawn towards what you're saying. Totally agree.
Mhm.
But at the back of their mind saying, all fine and good, Jessica, but my husband or my wife does it differently than the way that I would want to do it, which is your way. What's some words of encouragement or advice that you can give to those?
Yeah. You're bringing up a really important topic that we haven't talked about yet, and it's called attachment science. And if I were to name a goal in parenting or really any relationship, it is to have real connection. And real connection is when the child feels safe, they feel seen. And we've already talked about some of these things like safe, that when they're having these big emotions, they're not bad. When they feel seen, that when we're helping them understand their needs and their wants, they feel soothed. So that whole co-regulation thing I went through with emotional intelligence, that's the prefrontal cortex where children can regulate their own emotions. Again, that's developing between ages 7 to 25. So especially until the age of 7, our children need us to help regulate their emotions with them. And then they're going to need it beyond that as well. So that's feeling soothed. And then safe, seen, soothed, and secure. And secure has to do with when children have this strong foundation and practice of all these things, they're going to be resilient with whatever comes back to them. So this is attachment science as defined by Dr. Dan Siegel and Dr. Tina Payne Bryson, who are renowned in child psychology and brain development. And what attachment science is about is we want to have a secure attachment with our child. And you have a secure attachment when you have those 4 S's that I mentioned. And really, it's only necessary for a child to have that with one caregiver. Of course, both caregivers is better, right? The children will just have more stability. It's going to be easier for the other caregiver to have the other person supporting them. But really, it just takes that child having one secure attachment with one caregiver to have the chance at resiliency and stability and capabilities to make great decisions, bounce back when they don't make great decisions. So for parents who are divorced, single parents, I've worked with some single parents, and I think that they love to have a second sounding board, because part of being in a partnership is I can ask my husband, what do you think about this? And we kind of can work together on things. And so working with a parenting coach, they kind of have another sounding board if they don't have that relationship with their ex-partner. And most of my clients are women. It's usually the moms who kind of step into this role and head this type of thing. But I always strongly encourage, if things are really bad in your home, things are going to get a lot better a lot quicker when both go through the program together. Because it's one thing to teach somebody else something, but when you're teaching your partner that, it's like a whole different dynamic that's just really, really challenging. I experienced it firsthand, and with a lot of my clients I've worked with, it's what we talk about a lot as well. So it is possible for your child to have stability and secure attachment with just one caregiver if both caregivers do not want to be involved. And if anything, it's going to give that child an even nicer foundation for when they are dealing with maybe more turmoil or more yelling in the other home, to know, well, I do know the proper way to handle this. And they're going to learn how to regulate themselves and bring themselves to calm quicker, and how to talk about the things that are going on in the other home instead of just harboring them inside, which of course creates all kinds of problems when we keep those things internal instead of having somebody talk about those with. Oops, I lost your audio, Sabrina.
Can you repeat the 4 S's for those that might want to write it down?
Yes, sure. Safe, seen, soothed, and secure. So this is what I define real connection as, and what Dr. Tina Payne Bryson and Dr. Daniel Siegel have defined it as. They have an amazing book. It's called The Power of Showing Up, where they talk about those 4 S's. And to have a secure attachment, I consider that real connection. It's where a person feels unjudged, they feel supported, and they feel like they can be their authentic selves in the relationship.
Mm. We know, opening up, that you said you have an 11, 9, and 7-year-old girls.
Yes.
Can we speak for a moment to those parents out there who have older children who are 12, 15, 17? Are they screwed? Is there hope? Can we speak to them for a moment? Because a lot of times they're sitting down when their girl is 15 and they're like, I wish I did it a little bit different when they were 7. So what's some words of encouragement or some steps that you can give to those out there that are, have older children?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a wonderful question. So I want to start out by saying that change is possible at any stage and age of our lives. And Sabrina, I know you've been through so much well past your teenage years and early adult years, and you've completely transformed your life.
Yeah.
I know I have done the same. So there is always hope. And a lot of my clients have been teachers who have been working with children for years. I've had counselors, I've had therapists, I've had pediatricians as my clients, which I think just goes to show people who are already in these fields of wellness know that there is always more to learn and know and to become current on. So it's never too late. And I also want to say this, at the same time, our children are the most impressionable between the ages of 0 and 7. So even in the womb, they are picking up any stress that is going on around them in the home. And they are kind of absorbing their identity mostly during those first 7 years. I want to point out one other thing at this moment when I talk about how humans are raising other humans without actually understanding how humans work. And when I want to ask this question, what do you think that humans want more than anything in the whole world, whether an adult, a child? I know when I went through the program, I didn't have this information, but it made sense to me. Yes.
What do all humans want? To be heard. Is that wrong?
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, it's definitely part of it. It's connection.
Connection. Okay. All humans want connection.
Yes. So the reason I bring it up now, from ages 0 to 7, your child is born into this world to just adoring you and really needing you for survival. And they will do whatever it takes to win your approval and your love and your connection. And so from that first 7 years of age, they're in a hypnosis state anyway, just with how their brain functions. And we don't even have to teach them anything. They are absorbing how to be accepted and how to experience that connection. So oftentimes they will kind of derail off of their authenticity if they're like, oh, my mom only praises me when I perform in a certain way. Or my mom only gives me attention and will play with me after I've done all the things or whatever it may be. So laying the foundation for our children in those first 7 years where they are understanding what it takes to be loved and accepted into this world is very important. Once children get around to the age of like 13 and middle school, it's going to get harder because if we haven't already set up that foundation, now they are looking for new kind of guiding stars, North Stars, somebody to follow. And if we don't have that strong foundation with them, they're most likely going to follow what their friends are doing and look for somebody outside. But it's never, ever too late. It just gets a little bit more difficult when they're in the middle school and high school years. But absolutely chipping away at this, laying the foundation. And like you said, how did we introduce this to our family? And I mentioned there was like multiple layers of, we do family meetings. Like, hey, what does everybody think about this new process? Or, hey, what's going well for you? What isn't? So, you kind of treat it differently as you go along with the different ages to kind of meet the kids where they're at. Like younger kids, you do a lot through play and things out, where I definitely encourage middle school homes, high school moms, Sunday mornings over breakfast, 15 minutes. Like, hey guys, what's going well in the family? What's not? And everybody can have a chance to come up with some new processes and really have input to the values that the family is focusing on and the boundaries that align with that. So this program is foundational for all ages and stages, even grown parents who want to figure out what went wrong, why their children don't confide in them today or don't really want to spend time with them, they can get an understanding of what children actually needed to feel that connection and what they actually got and where the miss could have been. And then they can do repairs on that. Oops, your audio's off, Sabrina.
Thanks. I'd like to, as we're kind of closing up here, talk a little bit about ego.
Yeah. So ego, love this topic. A lot of us don't know that our inner voice is actually not really always telling us the truth. And our ego is often a result of our conditioning and what we've taken on as beliefs to feel connection and to feel accepted, either by our caregivers or by society, our friend groups, our teachers. And so it's often that voice that's telling us we can't do it, or we're not good enough to do it, or, oh, that could never be me if I have this dream of this certain career. But the truth is if we have a desire that keeps coming up within us, kind of like within our heart space, somewhere within our body, this idea of always wanting to do this, always wishing to do this, and we come up with all these reasons why we can't, that's just our ego. That's just conditioning that we've received along the way. But the truth is that whatever we want is what we are meant to be doing. And if we start trusting that inner voice and start working to understand how the ego came to be the way that it is, where this conditioning came from, if we can kind of get to the root of it, then we are going to feel a lot more free from that inner voice that is keeping us back from our heart's desire. And so, specifically relating this to parenting, if, it's been going on for days, weeks, or years where we are thinking, oh, it's going to get better. It's going to get better if I just wait till this stage or age. Like, no, we're meant to thrive every day. That's your inner knowing telling you that something needs to shift here. And the ego is the one telling you, oh, just hang in there longer, just wait it out. It's going to get better. If you have that disconnect, that feeling of like this connection could be stronger, that's because it's meant to be. We are meant to be fully connected in full acceptance, without judgment, and full love. And so I really encourage viewers, if you're not familiar with the ego, if you're not comfortable with your intuition and close to that inner voice, to really spend a lot of time here and surround yourself with people who have been through that, because it is so freeing. And I do want to share one of my favorites quotes from Dr. Dan Siegel in one of his books. So often with attachment science work, we do have to go back and look at our upbringing and how it was, and whether it met a secure attachment or one of these other attachments that are less favorable, like disorganized or ambivalent attachment, so that we can understand why we are the way that we are and how we came to be the way that we are. Because the connection that we have with our kids is only going to be as strong as that connection that we had with ourselves early on with that caregiver, unless we do the work of understanding what was amiss. And I really like to say this, when we look back at how we were parented, it is not to blame anyone. I am so close with my family and friends and siblings. We are an amazing, amazing family. And at the same time, it is okay to look back and say, there were some things I didn't get that I needed, just because I'm a human, not because my mom was bad, my dad was bad. Everybody did the best that they could, and they showed up with the conditioning that they had. So a lot of people don't like to look back, especially my men clients. But this is what I wanted to share with you that Dr. Dan Siegel says. He says, it's important to look back so that you can move forward. Think of it as like a dog bite, right? Like a dog bites your hand. If you try to pull away from it and just keep going, ignore it, avoid it, the teeth are going to sink in deeper, and they're going to have a hold of you, and they're going to have power over you. And it's going to compromise your freedom, your ability for connection. But instead, if you shove your fist down that dog's throat, the teeth are going to release, and you're going to have access to that deep connection that you really desire with yourself, because your connection with your kids will only, or anyone else will only be as good as your connection with yourself. And a lot of times, unfortunately, early on, we lose that connection because we're just trying to fit in with our caregivers, society, and life. Sabrina, I forget your question. Hopefully I
we were
answered
talking about ego, but that made sense. Yeah.
I can get going on all these topics. Super favorite topics.
Yes. Well, I so appreciate it. And we have a ton of people watching live. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about, what exactly you do. Obviously, they're here because they're resonating with what you're saying. What exactly do you do? Who do you help? Who should be reaching out to you?
Yes. So parents, if you are struggling with yelling in your home all day, if sibling fights are driving you nuts, there's power struggles, you are not feeling this connection with your child, this program is for you. Generally, what I provide is a 12-week transformational parenting program. And it's for those who are ready to, like, who have had enough, who are just ready to be in charge of their life, not just let their life happen to them. People who are ready to commit to having the relationships that they desire, and committed to being the leader that really is their responsibility as having a family, to lead their children to what real connection is. So it takes commitment, and it takes a willingness to be okay with, it's really not any of our fault for the way that things have gone and what we've learned so far. Honestly, parenting, everything that I've learned is from research within the last 10 years. So it's relatively new. This information was not available before. And if you look up a lot of the things to do, it's timeouts and reward charts. And really, those actually create a lot more harm than good. So my clients have done all the things. You've read the books just like I did. You did the positive parenting app, and nothing is shifting, and you are ready for real changes. So the best thing you could do is go to my website at findmyzenfam.com. It's listed here, and you can book a free call with me. It'll be about 30 minutes. You can let me know what's going on in your home, and I can let you know if this program is a good match for you and your family. And I do individual coaching, group coaching, and couples coaching. So lots of options.
That's fantastic. Where can people find you? We have your website, findmyzenfam.com, underneath your face. It's also clickable. But where do you hang out on social media? Where can people follow you?
Yes, I'm on 4 different channels, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. So you can reach me there. And then I send out a lot of email content as well. So you can sign up for that through my website. And I do free webinars and challenges. So the best thing to do is probably go to my website for all of that information and connect where it's a good match for you.
Fantastic. And what are your, why do you do what you do?
We had so many good times too. So I don't want to say like the time with my kids was horrible. We had so much fun, so many laughs, but I do know that parenting is meant to feel good. Now that I know what I know, we're meant to thrive every day. And starting tomorrow or waiting another year, like I did all that. And I just want to save parents the time. I want to let them know that textbook is finally here, and there's a lot of wrong ones out there. So I really want to spread this information as far and wide as possible, because I understand now the pain that this causes us as parents, our children, how it prevents them from showing up confidently in their world as they start to grow up. It prevents them from being able to combat peer pressure, for example. If they are in this command and demand home where they just have to say yes, they can't negotiate, and they aren't allowed to say no to anything, well, then that actually carries over into their other relationships as well. And they become a yes man, and they become susceptible to peer pressure. And when our kids don't know how to handle these emotions, they're going to mute them later with substance abuse. And these are all things that I've experienced in my home, my family, I've seen firsthand. And I just feel with every part of my being, it is my calling to let parents know there is information, but it's hard to find. And I'm really excited for it to become more mainstream, because I think we're going to see a big change in the mental health of everyone, families, children, the parents. I think it's just going to be more enjoyable most of the time and make more sense.
Yes, fantastic. Well, I thank you so much for being here, for hanging out with us, for sharing some amazing insights to parents to be able to flow a little bit better in their home. And for those of you that are watching live and that would love to connect with Jessica, like I said, her link is right behind, in front of her face area. It's also a clickable link underneath. And I'd love to make sure that you guys connect with her if this is resonating with you. Any closing thoughts as we wrap up, Jessica?
I would just say there's so much that parents have to overcome to reach out for support. But I want to just let you know that you're not meant to do it alone. We are all meant to connect, not just with our children, but with one another. It's everything that you do, Sabrina, supporting one another. But that's a big thing. Like society implies we're supposed to know what to do, and we have to do it on our own. But that's only sustainable for so long. And then people begin to break, and it gets real messy, and it gets really hard to get out of. And I was never somebody who accepted care and accepted help, or believed that support was for me or my family. We were that average, normal family. Like I never pictured we would have such disconnect. So I just want you to know that we're super complicated, and we're also super fragile. And while we need to forgive ourselves and each other quickly and move on, we also need to become more conscious of the things that we're doing daily, the things that we're saying daily. And with just a little bit of practice, all of that can become really smooth. And then we can just kind of move more fluently and confidently, knowing that we are setting ourselves up and our families up in the best way possible for strong mental health and a happy life.
Beautiful. Well, I thank you so much for being here and sharing with us. Thank you for those of you that are watching live. Thank you for those of you that are watching on the replay. This community is expanding every single day, and it's filled with females who are striving to do better than they did yesterday. For those of you that are new to this show and love content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. If you have an amazing story, content, ideas, theories to share, be sure to reach out to me at hernation.life. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I'm so grateful to be here sharing a platform that allows people to share their truth and inspire others. As always,